What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. I am your host, JoshuaJHolland, and today we've got a very fascinating discussion about feet, the foundation of the entire body, why you might see me wearing toe socks and these flat shoes, and also what's happening in the world of foot health and footwear. On the show today, we have Mr. Asher Clark, who happens to be the co-founder and chief design officer of Vivobarefoot. In the shoe-shaped design game since graduating from LCF in 2003 with an award for fashion innovation and Drapers Yonge Footwear Designer of the Year, Asher went on to learn his trade designing shoes for many brands around the world. He's been at the foot-shaped design hot seat at Vivobarefoot since 2009 when it was reestablished as a standalone brand, at which point his passion in sustainability, function, and natural human movement led him to dedicate himself to trying to create the perfect range of barefoot footwear, not shoes. Working alongside his cousin Galahad Clark CEO and a growing group of incredibly smart human beings, Vivobarefoot is a brand that creates products, services, and experiences that literally reconnect people and the planet.
Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
Mr. Asher Clark, welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, Josh. How you doing? Long time. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. I'm excited to see your face, the smile on your face. I like the new hat with the V. For those of you out there who are only listening to this podcast, you might want to pause this and go back and watch the video because we're going to pull up a lot of cool things. And also you might want to see Asher's handsome face. You know, he's a man that has been involved with Vivobarefoot as long as I've been, around Vivobarefoot. And I thought, what a better person to get on the show than someone who's behind the design of all things Vivobarefoot and footwear. And those of you who have been following this podcast for a while, you may have heard the episode I did with Galahad, his cousin. And that was before we were doing the video podcast. But now we've got video, we've got Asher himself on the show. So Asher, I'd love to just start by maybe diving a little bit deeper into your background so people kind of get a better sense for who you are.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, obviously, thanks for having me on the show, Josh. It is a pleasure to be here. And I guess, our background goes back, hundreds of thousands of years. And I think we'll touch on all of this stuff later on in the podcast. But yeah, we're all the same kind of bodies and brains and shapes and sizes that we were that long ago. And we're going to touch on why, the body and the foot adapts to the environment you put it in, and why we're all kind of having this conversation today, returning back to natural health, biohacking, like it's a thing because there's something to hack. And that's really why what we're doing at Vivo, obviously from the ground up with feet. But yeah, it all started for me actually 7 generations ago. You may or may not know that both Galahad and I are 7th generation shoemakers. So it's probably
Cobblers.
Cobblers, yeah, it's probably in our genes. Maybe we've got a bit of a toning to do for our ancestors' sins. We're trying to free the feet and let your feet do their natural thing. And once we really realized that, it was a really incredible realization. Like the penny dropped, right? When the rest of the shoe industry is making shoe-shaped shoes that that ultimately impact your feet and how you move up the kinetic chain. And we realized that actually the best thing you can do is make as little shoe as possible. It became a far bigger calling and challenge that was just about designing another shoe. And yeah, that kind of journey, obviously through design college, working for lots of different shoe brands, and cutting my teeth doing all of that. You know, they say that after all of this searching, we come back to the beginning, and you know, the beginning for us is feet, and we're on a foot-shaped journey to try and kind of shine a light on the best bit of technology to ever go into a shoe, which is the human foot, and what we're trying to do to allow that to happen.
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting. In that bio that I read off, there was that piece that I mentioned about how this is footwear, not shoes.
Yeah.
Could you touch on that a little bit more? Because I know you alluded to that in what you just mentioned now, but like, let's touch on that a little bit more, because I know that's very important from a brand perspective.
No, big time. And I think we kind of use that juxtaposition a little bit kind of higher up the chain, so to speak, of normal versus natural. Just because something's normal or normalized, it doesn't mean it's right or the natural kind of right thing to do. And obviously, you know more about that than most, Josh. And it's the same, obviously, with footwear. It's we all have feet, and the majority of, you know, and particularly in the kind of Western developed world, everyone has been wearing shoes for kind of hundreds of years, right? But shoes, for one reason or another, have become shoe-shaped, and we now have got since the likes of Nike and Adidas that went down a direction of trying to create the perfect shoe for modern humans, and adding a little bit of cushioning underneath, and then needing to add a bit of support and then a bit of motion control. I think on a kind of an honest journey to try and make the perfect shoe, whereas in the end, millions of years of evolution has already done a pretty damn good job. Your feet are, you know, incredible movement sensors and fantastic bits of kit that are able to deal with, you know, motion control and shock absorption. And really, all we need to do is make as little footwear as possible, right? So we call it footwear rather than shoes.
Well said. And it's we kind of have to get out of our own way. You know, it's like, obviously, and I want to pull up a video here. I when I was recently in London, I was at the Nike Town store in London, and I actually was with a trainer buddy of mine, and his name is Ash, and he wanted to stop into the store, and he was like, hey, you know, let's just stop in, and I like to look at what's going on. And I was trying to explain to him this idea of this video that I saw of, you know, people strapping on like pillows as a funny meme, strapping pillows to their feet. And then we came across this video that's playing right now. And so for those of you that are only listening, Gordon has pulled up this video in which I went to the store. I captured all of this. It's called Nike Invincible. And basically they're promoting the fact that we should be cushioning our feet, and we should be basically limiting our range of movement instead of freeing our movement. Like, no one wants to be locked into, you know, a jail, or, you know, to be in what do they call those crazy suits, you know, when people go into
straight jacket,
straight jacket, right? It's like no one wants to be in a straight jacket, so why would we want to put our feet in a straight jacket? And it's like, when I see what's being promoted in this big company like Nike, then it's obvious that a lot of people are going to come to me and say, well, wait a minute, I thought that we need support for the shoes. What you're telling me, Josh, is that we need to not have support. And I'm like, well, yeah, our feet come naturally, beautifully designed with everything we need in terms of motion control, as you mentioned, and, you know, support and things like that. But we've got to use it as such. If we don't use it, we lose it. And so then you might have to get something like that. But what are your thoughts on the marketing and the design concept, being that that's what you do?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's wild. And that's kind of what really dedicated us to this mission all those years ago, is there's something crazy about realizing this truth that is not the that's not the kind of common narrative, so to speak, right? So yeah, I still find it absolutely bananas that there's obviously loads of stats out there, that 75% or whatever of people that kind of run suffer from some kind of injury. That in the 70s of percent people, Americans, suffer from some kind of foot problem. You don't get that from nature, right? You don't have kind of kangaroos and lions getting injured doing the most natural form of locomotion, which is running. And obviously in 2010, like, you had Daniel Lieberman's kind of the running kind of persistence running hypothesis. Ultimately, humans are kind of born to run, and of course the book Born to Run by Chris McDougall. And we've been running for a millennia, standing, walking, and running for a millennia, and big padded fancy underfoot technology has been around for about kind of 50 years. Mm-hmm. So for me, the kind of onus is on the shoe companies to prove that we need all of that stuff under our feet to solve whatever problem it is that we think we need solving, right? But it's a great point you point out, Josh, of if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think I mentioned earlier, like, your feet, your body and your feet adapt to the environment you put it in. If you're sitting in a seated posture, you get weak abdominals, your kind of spine and posture kind of all changes. If you sit in a sofa too long, your body muscles and ligamental tissue atrophies a bit. And it's the same with your feet. Your feet have got the same amount of nerve endings in as your hands. They're designed to feel and send that information up the kinetic chain so you can move right. Mm-hmm. The muscles and tendons are designed to literally give you natural energy return and shock absorption. And if you've got your arm in a cast, if you've broken your arm, when you take it out of that cast, the first thing you need to do is rehab it, right? You've got to get it strong and working again. And so yeah, I mean, it's the beginning of a journey, and seeing the videos like the ones you just saw for me is still wild, and it kind of fuels the fire to keep on going and unleash the feet.
Absolutely, man. And to be quite honest with you, it's the same for me. It actually pisses me off, but it prompted this conversation here because, I was there. I knew well enough to know that, like, oh, this is going to be a great bit of content. And then when I met up with Nick, we had a lunch, a lovely lunch. Mm-hmm. And I told him that story. And then that was when it was like, you know what? I haven't had I had Galahad on the show, but I haven't had Asher on the show. So maybe we can use that to kind of create something. And here we are talking about it. Yeah. And one of the analogies I like to use when it comes to how we could be thinking about our feet is, like, I use this analogy a lot. I mean, maybe it's not even an analogy, but it's a thought. How many of us have ever rolled our ankles while barefoot?
Yeah.
How many people do you know that has rolled their ankle while being barefoot? Yeah. Chances are it's close to zero, right? Yeah. Unless there's something in the way, right? Like you step on something, you roll your ankle, whatever. But I don't know many people, if any, that have ever done that. Yeah. But the moment you start introducing any bit of thickness to the bottom layer of your feet, you now slow down the response, that signal you were talking about from the bottom of the feet to the brain and back to get the body to adjust or adapt. Well, it gets dumbed down. And so even if you add the sock, the layer of a sock is enough to kind of slow that signal down just a tad bit, right? Yeah. But now let's talk about the inch or half an inch, or I don't know how many centimeters, right? But like, it's like we add a certain amount of thickness to the bottom of a shoe. It's no wonder why people start to roll their ankles. And also, not only is it unstable, but it also allows us to do more than we probably should be doing in terms of impact. Yeah. So, right, like we can lift more, which the body may not be ready for it. If you're barefoot, you'll know right away. It's like a check engine light, right? Yeah. So it's like I'm happy that you and I know this, but I want more and more people to know this, because if you walk into the Nike Town store, right now, you would think oh, well, I guess this is where the technology is headed, so this is what I should get. But I'm here to say no. And I know you're here to say no.
Yeah.
So let's unleash the feet, as you said.
Yeah, no, big time. And yeah, because it's kind of motion control theory, right? Is like kinetics and kinematics is force and shapes, and your body needs to make the right kind of shapes to deal with the appropriate forces. So, obviously it starts with standing, and you need a nice kind of clean upright posture, and of course chairs and our sedentary lifestyles get in the way of posture. And then walking is one, or standing is one body weight. Walking gets to about two body weights, and your body can handle like a kind of heel toe, kind of heel stroke, kind of walking gait. And then the faster you go, you get into the third key gear for humans, which is of course running. And your body needs to feel that little bump in the heel as you're moving faster and faster, and the body weight's getting heavier, to turn that walk into a run. But the problem is with too much cushioning is your brain isn't getting that signal, right? Right. And it's cushioning that signal. So that's where we like, in the same way we like to talk about shoes versus footwear, we like to talk about jogging versus running. And jogging is like a kind of hybrid movement of walk running, and it's that big kind of ploddy, loud. You can hear joggers coming from behind you when you're kind of in the park, and it's ploddy, it's loud, and it's a heel strike, rather than a faster cadence where the feet are more forefoot and they're underneath the body, and ultimately that natural elastic kind of bouncy energy. So cushioning shoes enable or I guess mask the ability of your brain to be able to make the right shapes, to deal with the right forces, and to move in a natural way. And it's a vicious circle, and probably one of the reasons why a very huge percentage, it's in the 70s or even 80s, of recreational runners and movers suffer from some kind of injury because of, frankly, chairs and footwear, or shoes, should I say.
Well said. And, before we carry on to more of the design concepts and the issues in the conventional footwear space, and what you guys are doing, what you're doing specifically at Vivo Barefoot, before we get into that, I want to use what you just mentioned as a great segue for the Pomodoro break, right? Because you mentioned sedentary lifestyle, you mentioned, sitting in chairs. I'm currently sitting. Usually when I do this podcast, I'm at home in New York, and I'm not in a chair. I'm usually standing. But even standing for long periods of time can become sedentary, right? So what is something that you would either do yourself or that you would offer for our audience, or even for me, to do when we have moments when we've been sedentary for long periods of time? What is something you would do?
Yes, so first of all, I have to hold my hands up too, and I am currently sitting next to the photocopier in our office in London. The office is really busy right now, but yeah, a stand-up desk is really important, right? People say to me, what can I do? I want to try out some Vivo Barefoot shoes or whatever. How do I do that? And the first way to try out Vivo Barefoot shoes is just take your shoes off, because there's no secret sauce, right? So take your shoes off, stand up at your desk. We can do that now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
let's do it.
So take your shoes off, stand up at your desk, and let gravity really do its thing, right? Be mindful of your feet, and imagine the soles of your feet, and you've got equal pressure on your big toes, your midfoot, and your heel. Often what happens if you wear shoes, then your toes become weak, so your feet and your big toes aren't really on the ground. So press that big toe in and feel the strength in that big toe flexor, the great toe. Then try and level out the weight or the pressure between the ball of your foot, your big toe, and your heel. So it's nice even pressure, nice and straight up through the navel, with a nice straight head above your shoulders, everything nice and straight. And just feel that for a minute. Just feel everything feeling nice and aligned. Feel yourself kind of bring that navel forward just a little bit. Feel everything feeling nice, straight, and aligned. Feels quite different, right? And then just to stretch everything out a little bit, you do just the natural squat. So you can't fully see me, but you squat down Try and get those knees over your ankles.
I love it.
Nice straight back. Oh, you can see my my bobble hat. Nice straight back. Feel it all in there, and that just really enables the kind of range of motion through your rockers, your toe, your bull rocker, your heel rocker, and then into your knees above the toes, and stand up. So the simple squat and the simple kind of standing straight upright posture is the foundation of mobility, range of motion, and ultimately healthy natural movement. And wear as little shoe as you can most of the time.
Thank you for that. That's incredible. Certainly a first, and I think people should really take heed to that. And I know at the end of the show we will direct people to the Vivo Health platform and a lot of the teachings and education and information that's on the website. But use what Asher just explained to kind of just reset. Not only is it a reset for your physical body, but also, you know, what it can do to your brain. You know, now we get a chance to come back into a fresh set of questions and answers and discussions because we just broke up this monotony of conversation. So I love bringing this Pomodoro break into not only the podcast, but into my life, because, you know, we were designed to move, right? The human body was designed to move. At the end of the day, we're human animals, right? And animals are designed to move. And quite frequently, I don't even have to have like a timer or an alarm to tell me when to get up. Sometimes I just have this sensation of like, oh, I need to move, you know, so I move. And I just think we should really tap into that a lot more. So thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
So here's where I want to direct the conversation, because you are the design guy, right? And you obviously know loads about the footwear space and the health of the feet and the body in general. What are some of the challenges, or what are some of the questions that you hear when you either overhear people talking about the difference between barefoot and non-barefoot, or I should say maybe like minimal versus conventional? What are some of the challenges, and then what have you had to do to sort of create what you've created in terms of Vivo Barefoot?
So there's a lot in there, honestly. I mean, I guess the first kind of FAQ that comes up is, humans didn't evolve on hard surfaces, and you can't run on hard surfaces, and blah blah blah. But you only have to. I've got a lovely video which I'll share with you, Josh. But yeah, I've got a video of my son when he was about 2 years old, running along this concrete step, and he was full tilt sprinting with bare feet on. And I filmed it in slow motion on my camera. And the interesting thing with kids' feet is that they're basically about 70 or 80% cartilage until their formative years. So they're plastic, which is what there's like a plasticity there, which is why, you know, the real problems start or are avoided when you put your kids in shoes or not, because they're like incredible dexterous, wide little fatty cartilage kind of appendages until their kind of formative years, right? So there's my son running full pace on concrete, and you can see all the foot's loading, the toes are splaying, and back again. And yeah, I guess to the analogies that you were trying to draw earlier, that just watch a kid running around a tarmac swimming pool and ask if we're not able to run on hard surfaces, right?
Right.
So that's the big one. And that's cushioning, really. Cushioning and support versus no cushioning and no support. And I guess then the other big challenge is really understanding the anatomy of the foot and what the foot needs to do and where it flexes and how it works, and then trying to translate that into shoemaking, or in our case, into making footwear, and making kind of soft, making products that are soft and flexible. This shoe's not out yet. This is the Motus.
I have it.
I'm gonna see it. You've got it, yeah.
It's my favorite.
But making a product that is completely flexible, that stays together and will work and deliver for a long life, is a lot harder than making a product that is made out of harder, rigid components. This is from a manufacturing perspective. And that's a never-ending journey for us to go on, where we're trying to. There's a beautiful Buckminster Fuller quote. He's the kind of godfather of a biophilic design, and it's do more with less until eventually you can do everything with nothing. And there's a beautiful kind of virtuous circle there, that literally the less footwear we make, the better it is for human movement and planetary health. So
wow.
it kind of gives us this beautiful kind of North Star of just trying to, get out of the way, as you put it earlier. We're just trying to get out of the way of us living, feeling, experiencing life in all of its glorious detail. And we're doing that in some ways from a ground up. And it's a constant kind of challenge, so to speak, is to make the perfect footwear, which is perfect for feet, perfect for human movement up the kinetic chain, and ultimately regenerative to planetary health, which is a good segue into, I think, the huge unlock and the huge challenge, which is creating shoes person by person, foot by foot, with a circular kind of end of life solution, so that we can keep products in service forever, rather than an extractive, taking materials, creating something that kind of fits everyone just about, and then at the end of life putting it in the landfill. We want to create what we call regenerative bare footwear is the North Star that is healthy for feet and healthy for the planet.
Bingo. I love that quote, by the way. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure we'll clip that into something. That was a great quote by Buckminster Fuller. I think it's a really, really good one. What I would like to do, because I think this could be very helpful for those that are listening and watching this show, could you identify maybe 2, 3, or 4 things that would constitute the perfect footwear? What are a couple of things that people should look for when they're trying to find their perfect piece of kit?
Yeah, so we call it fit, flex, and feel, or the 3 Fs. And then that translates down those verticals into wide, thin, and flexible, or what the flex. So fit is obviously, a shoe needs to be foot shaped, not shoe shaped, right? So we want the product to allow your feet to be as close to their natural form as possible, which is kind of unfashionable. So it's similar to that. Yeah, so it's wide to let your feet, and particularly your big toes spread, and your big toe really lock in there. We were looking at that earlier, and that ultimately gives you a stable base of support, right?
Yep.
Next one is a thin sole. So contrary to popular belief, you want as little sole as possible, because as we spoke about again before, you've got hundreds of thousands of nerve endings in your feet, the same as your hands. Your feet are made to feel. So the thinner and the denser the sole, the better the information your brain's getting, so you can move well. So are you feeling it is probably the next thing you need to ask yourself when you put a pair of footwear on. And finally, it needs to be as flexible as possible. So when we were moving and flexing that product earlier, which is really challenging to make products do that and not fall apart, that is enabling your feet to flex, and particularly the hundreds of muscles and intrinsic muscles in your feet that all need to do their thing, and the fascia and the ligaments in your feet that are literally putting a spring in your step. The flexibility enables all that to happen. So fit, which is wide for stability. Feel, which is thin sole to allow you to feel everything and to move naturally. And then flex, which is all about strength and allowing you to have strong feet. And we actually recently were part of a study with Liverpool University, and the study concluded that if you wear Vivos for 6 months, and really it's not wearing Vivos, it's if you're barefoot or in a really minimal correct shoe for more than 6 months, then it literally increases your foot strength by up to 60%. Which is meaningful, right? Because it doesn't matter what you wear on race day or what you wear to run around the park, or what you wear playing basketball. Whatever you're wearing 90% of the time, just make sure it's fit, flex, and feel, and strong, healthy feet are the foundation of natural movement. And who doesn't want a little bit of that?
Well said. Yeah, I mean, everything you touched on, I'm just kind of like, yes, because clearly I've been working with you guys for over a decade now. And I don't know if you remember or not, but I got brought in back in the days of like Born to Run, Chris McDougall, and Lee Saxby, was sort of my mentor in all of this. And I was someone, and I know I mentioned this in the episode with Galahad, but I think it's worth reiterating, is I was at a point in my life where I was fortunate enough to grow up in martial arts, which usually is done barefoot. And then there was a point in time when I was using those very thin tabis, kung fu shoes and tabis, things like that. So I had this understanding of like, I was able to develop, because I started when I was 4 years old. So I was able to develop a lot of my movement based on barefoot, right? Yeah. But then once I started to play basketball, you can't help but get caught up in the whole hype around Jordans and, all these different shoes that were coming out. And of course I wanted to be the cool kid. And I started to develop more issues throughout my body, but I couldn't really identify it then because I was young and I didn't have the information I have now. Yeah. So I had to start wearing like things around my knees, and I was getting like, knee issues. And then I was getting like these heel contusions. And that goes back to what we were talking about before, which is when you have all this cushion on the bottom of the shoe, you were forced to do things that you wouldn't normally do if you didn't have all of that cushion, right? Yeah. And that went on from high school or from junior high school to even college, university, and even a little bit of pro ball afterwards. Yeah. And I started to develop major bunions. And by the time that I got to New York and I started working with Lee and going through the Vivobarefoot training course, that was when I realized, oh my goodness, because I was this close. I was very close to getting bunion surgery. Yeah. And I remember specifically talking to Lee Saxby, and he was kind of telling me, mate, you don't want to do that. It's like, I can help you. I've seen people correct this. At the very least, we can slow down the progression of your bunions. Yeah. But he was like, I think if you're dedicated to it and it really means a lot to you, I can help you to really correct it. And I will say, to this day, all of my shoes are Vivobarefoot. Yeah. And I love how you corrected yourself earlier by saying the study doesn't have to necessarily be Vivobarefoot, right? Because you guys aren't just trying. I mean, of course, you're a business, you want to sell shoes, but it's about being actually barefoot or being in a minimal shoe, one that fits the 3 Fs like you just explained, right? And from there, you can do all the correction that I think that most of our bodies need. And I am a direct example of that. And this is the reason why I'm happy I'm able to talk to somebody like you, because let's be honest, at the beginning days of Vivobarefoot, when I first came in, there wasn't a lot of cool options.
No, it's been a long journey. In many ways, I feel like we're at the beginning of it, today. But yeah, we met up with you like right when we were all kind of, okay, right, we've got to take this on. And it's been a long kind of learning curve, which we talked about earlier. But yeah, how do you translate, that knowledge, that foundational knowledge that we were lucky to go on a big journey with Lee Saxby in those early days? How do you translate that into a business, into a footwear proposition, and really just hold your nerve, right? Because every kind of, what's the word? Every kind of entrepreneurial kind of cell in your body is going, just add a little, and people around you or salespeople are going, just add a little bit of cushioning, or kind of just make that woman's shoe a slightly sexier shape. But you just got to, there is that truth. It starts with your feet. It goes all the way back to evolutionary biology, and there's obviously a bigger conversation in the connection to natural health. But your evolution's done a pretty damn good job with feet, and if we get those out of shoes as much as possible and moving how they're meant to be, and we're mindful of further up the kinetic chain of simple things like posture and mobility, with simple moves like squatting and all of the stuff that you're a big purveyor of, we can get back to and reclaim our supernatural potential right from the ground up. And it's such a kind of simple thing that we all have, and you don't need a shiny new product in a shiny new box to get at it. You just need a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of truth of some of those key movement milestones, and you can feel a lot better with a lot less.
Yes. The thing that I would like to have people walk away from or take away from this conversation, and this is just my sentiment, so feel free to elaborate on it if you want, but don't be fooled by the so-called experts, when you go into a shoe store and they say, hey, let's see if this is the right shoe for you. I want you to hop on this treadmill. I'm going to take a video, or I'm going to look at you from the back, and we're going to tell you if you need a pronation correction, maybe you overpronate, or maybe you over supinate, or whatever. And then they sell you all these shoes based on this like fake study, right? I mean, to be honest with you, it means nothing, because our foot is designed to fall a certain way naturally anyway. Yeah. So to then try to correct that, and it's basically like a circus to me, yeah. And when I go into these shoe stores and I see it happening, it's like it's hard for me to hold my tongue, Yeah. I just want people to just understand that, so I can say it here. I don't want to take any food off of anybody's table, but like I wish that the industry would learn, because I remember in the early days of Vivo, when I was doing a lot of the coaching work, you guys had the app that would allow us to sort of dictate how a person's moving with or without shoes, right? Yeah. Let's get you moving, and then let's find the footwear that may support the 3 Fs, right? Yeah. But it's all about, posture, rhythm, cadence, all of that stuff, relaxation, you know what I mean?
yeah, totally, yeah. And that's it. I think we're kind of, we're living in, we're living in a world now with, big pharma, big agriculture, big shoe, big tech, and a lot of what's driving that is kind of money and fashion, or kind of needs that aren't really needs. And we see the journey we're on is just an alternative kind of truth there, where really all you've got to do is look back in order to go forward, just take your shoes off, let gravity do its thing, learn to stand and walk again, feel the earth beneath your feet, and then gently feel that kind of foot strength bearing up. Or if you were getting bunions, there's really interesting simple kind of toga exercises you can do to get that big toe out, use gravity to get that strength back in everything, and feel it for yourself, and in many ways it doesn't matter what you wear when you're hooping, or when you're playing soccer, or when you're running, or whatever. I think the main thing is just be as barefoot for as much of the time as possible, and you can feel the benefits for yourself.
Yeah. And before we start wrapping up, I want to make sure that when someone listens to this podcast, or they see or hear information about being barefoot, and they decide they want to, pull the trigger and get their first bit of kit, one of the things that I think is so important, that I know you agree with, and everyone at Vivo Barefoot agrees with, and I certainly preach from the mountaintops, is you want to progressively overload. Okay. You want to transition safely and effectively. And that means, like you mentioned earlier, first of all, we should be barefoot inside our home anyway. right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can't even fathom people wearing shoes in their own home, but it happens, right? People wear slippers and whatever. So just stop doing that. That's one of the first things I would say. Second thing is when you do get your shoes, practice just standing in them or walking around the house in them for a bit, and then eventually get to walking and putting more miles on them walking, and then start to build up into slower running, and then eventually doing longer and longer runs if that is what you're planning on doing. But I think it's a huge mistake for people to think, oh, I need to be barefoot, or I need to get a minimal shoe. I'm gonna get that tomorrow, and then start training just as hard as I would with regular shoes. That would be a huge mistake, and I can tell you that from experience because it's happened to me.
Yeah, big time. And it's like, it's conscious movement, right? It's just being conscious of some of the key fundamentals. And don't run in our shoes. You've got to kind of go back to the beginning. We have a service called Vivo Health, which literally starts with your feet. It has a transition tool that takes you through it, and it starts with how healthy are your feet, right? Because that's the foundation that we're building from. And so it's feet, and then it's how strong, how healthy, what the shape of your feet are, and it's squatting. So that gives you a good kind of measurement of your range of motion, and within the key rockers, and through your knees, through your hips, etc. And then it will give you some kind of tailored advice to your journey. But it's ultimately to what you said, Josh. You've got to build up slow. Don't run in our shoes. And let your feet get back to all of their natural glory again, and be wet, and then you'll be kind of barefoot, kind of 24/7.
Yeah, I bet the foot fetish crowd would have a field day on you guys' website, man. It's a beautiful website.
You know what? I was say that. We were talking about the other day. There's like some ambassadors we have that wear barefoot a bit from time to time, and they do have a couple of followers going, yeah, can you DM me your bare feet?
Yeah. Oh man.
I don't know how many of our community are just really into feet for kind of strange reasons, or whether they're into them for
crossover. Probably a lot of crossover.
Whatever you're into, we're welcome to Vivo Barefoot.
Yeah. We're here to help. Yeah, exactly.
We're here to help.
Well, listen, I want to be mindful of your time because I know you're at the office, you're a busy man. I will clearly make sure that we've got all the information to allow people to find out, their best situation. Even if you just go to the website and, which would be vivobarefoot.com. You guys are based in the UK, but or in London, but you've got shops all over, and you've got websites in, most of the countries, right, around the world. So feel free to go check out, even just to learn some information, whether you buy a pair or not. I'm sure they would appreciate if you do buy a pair. And I even have a link for you guys to get a little discount that we can put in the show notes. But ultimately, like, I want people to learn more about, we should be asking the right questions. If you are going to a shoe shop, like, see if the shoes that you're looking at purchasing, if they fit the 3Fs like we just described here. Also, find out like just how informed or experienced the person that's supposed to be helping you as the expert on what shoe to find. Maybe we should be asking them questions, challenging them a little bit more. But it starts with ourselves. So we need to be more aware of the power of our feet. The feet are truly the foundation of our body, which means it's the foundation of our movement. So we got to take care of our feet, just like we have to take care of our mind and our body and our soul. Okay. So soul as in SOUL, but SOLE as well.
Josh, yeah, I couldn't have wrapped that up any better. I think that's spot on. And look, just because it's normal, just because everyone's doing it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right or it's natural and the right way to go. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to ask yourself. Is it normal or is it natural? And you can apply that to a lot of things, including footwear.
Yes, sir. Okay, I would like to ask you a couple questions I ask everyone on the show.
Yeah.
First question is kind of a funny one, and I can only imagine what you might come up with. But what is one or two top pet peeves of yours? A couple of things that just kind of get under your skin. It doesn't have to be about footwear. It can be about anything. But what are a couple of things that just come to mind when you think about a pet peeve?
Pet peeve. We just had our kind of sales meeting yesterday in the woods, and it was rainy and muddy, and the bus came to take everyone to the station, and everyone else filled the bus, and I was standing there in the mud waiting for a taxi. That was a PV moment I had yesterday.
Perfect.
Another pet peeve is one that is actually footwear related. It's kind of being in a running store and listening to and watching and biting my lip is some poor person that's kind of been sold a load of orthotics and a load of cushioning is walking out the door and ultimately putting something in their bag that isn't going to do their health any good. It's kind of got to. It's tough not to say anything, as I'm sure you've had that same challenge.
Yep.
Pet peeve number 3, I think would be with myself. I think it's really important for me to kind of have a ritual and spend enough time on making sure I'm getting up, moving before I do anything. I have a cold shower every morning, just Wim Hof style, to kind of get my circulation going. It's the last thing you want to do is step into a cold shower, but the payoff is worth every penny. You literally coming out raring to go. A bit of movement, bit of a cold shower. So my pet peeve is sometimes when I try and skip that, and I'm just kind of a bit peeved off with myself because there's no excuses for not moving and doing that. Those are 3.
Beautiful. That's great. And I, like you, am very much into cold thermogenesis. I obviously prefer the cold plunge if available. Yeah. But one thing, like you said, to kind of eliminate excuses is to just do the cold shower. And I always say to people, kind of like transitioning into a barefoot experience, you don't always have to start with cold and only take a shower with cold water. You can certainly start with warm, but I always like to tell people to finish with cold. No matter how you do it, if you want to start with cold, go to warm, and then finish with cold. Yeah. Just finish with cold. But it's virtually free, right? And it's a huge amount of benefit physically and mentally. So I love that you brought that up. And when the second one you mentioned about someone going into the store and not be able to say anything. When I was just in London, I picked up some cool kicks at the store, and I was outside because you guys are busy at the store in London and Covent Garden, right? And I guess there was a little bit of a line outside, or a queue, as you guys would say, right? So there was a queue outside, and I was in the queue, and I'm overhearing some of these conversations, right? So people are waiting to get into the store, and I saw this couple. They came up, and the guy, he was like, "Oh yeah, hey, this is that store I was telling you about." And she was like, "Oh, cool." So they go to the window, and they're looking in, and she was like, "Oh, I thought this was a store that had like all different types of shoes." She was like, "Yeah, I want to go to I want to get the Air Force Ones."
Yeah.
And they just walked away. And the guy, I could kind of tell that they're kind of a new couple. You can kind of tell, right? Yeah. Because the guy wanted to say something kind of like, "Well, this is, never mind." And she was like, "Well, no, we can go and look if you want." He was like, it's not worth it. So to me, it's like, wow, like I think it would be interesting if you guys were able to like set up like a video or like a microphone outside of the store when there's a queue like that, because the amount of conversations that are happening, some are good, some are bad, and some are kind of neutral. But that's why I like to do what I do with this podcast, is to address the questions that are happening and the concerns, because obviously, Vivo Barefoot might not have the design that you might like, that may not work. But like you mentioned throughout this show, as long as you're spending your time barefoot most of the time, then okay, sure, wear the Louboutin that that your loved one got you, or that you purchased a lot, you spent a lot of money on. Fine, but like, don't do that all the time.
No, and that's it, totally. And actually, sometimes you get the evangelist or the customer, returning customer is actually in the shop dealing with some of those questions, or trying to sell a pair of footwear to someone that's like umming and ahhing, or is coming for the first time. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So the last question, definitely one of my favorites. What is something you are most grateful for?
I am most grateful for. I'm most grateful. I mean, I should apply this kind of professionally, but obviously I'm not obviously. I'm a dad, husband, to an amazing wife and amazing kids, and I still have to pinch myself when I kind of like, get home and my kids are healthy and happy and call me dad and all that sort of stuff. I still feel like I'm kind of 18 at the beginning of my journey. And so I'm very grateful for that. And that same kind of mindset also applies to our business. Our business is now over 180 people. We're self-funded and growing kind of organically and fast, and it's happening, and being surrounded by over 170, 180 people. We just hired, I think, 40 or 50 people this year, just gone. And we were just on a sales meeting and went on an equinox party with everybody. We celebrate every equinox, so 4 times a year, seasonally. And to have everybody there around the hearth, with skinning venison, and we did some axe throwing and falcon flying and that crazy stuff, but having all these amazing people around us that are on this journey with us to build and to deliver value through products, services, and experiences out into the world is just a wonderful and very humbling place to be at this point in my life that still feels like it's the beginning. So
wow,
grateful for both of those things. Yeah.
Wow. Talk about community, building community and tribe. Like, I think that is so beautiful how you just explained that. So thank you for sharing. How can people best keep in touch with what you have going on, and what are the best ways to find out more about what we've been talking about today?
Yeah, I mean, I would it's pretty kind of old school, I guess, but I would follow us on Meta or Instagram or whatever it is these days. Sign up to Vivo Health and get access to incredible natural health professionals, everything from learning about the importance of the health of your gut biome to foot health to movement, and lots more inspirational ambassadors going to be joining that platform to help take people on kind of transformational health journeys, which of course is also what Josh is doing. Stay awake, question world that's around you, try and sleep, eat, wear things that you think are in line with your natural self and your potential, and be as healthy and happy as you can. It's a crazy world out there. So yeah, stay healthy, happy, keep moving.
That's right. All right. Well, to all the listeners, to all the viewers, to everyone that has participated in this conversation, thank you. If you made it to this point, thank you. I really do truly hope that you take heed to what Asher just said right here at the very end, which is just be more aware, right? Because we do have an ability to become healthier, happier, and sometimes it can be as simple as just taking off your shoes, be more barefoot, be more natural. And if you have any questions, I'm definitely happy to help. I'm always stressing the importance of being natural and being barefoot. And Asher, again, man, thanks for your time. I hope we get a chance to connect when I'm back in London soon, at the end of this tour in June. Yeah. And be on the lookout, because I think we're going to have some really cool content coming out soon. So I was talking with Nick, and I think we're going to set up something really cool and fun. So any way I can support, you can reach me anyway. And again, thanks for your time.
Yeah, big time. Josh. Keep following Josh. Josh, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you soon, stateside or UK side.
Yes, sir. All right, this is Josh signing out. Peace.
talk.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen.